Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of The Democratic View. I'm the hostess. My name is Phyllis Italiano, and with me today is a very distinguished woman, legislator, I might add, our county legislator, who has been so prominent in the last month or so, because we all had the opportunity to see Bridget Fleming on national television at the Democratic Convention.
That's right.
That was, I must say, everybody fell out of bed.
I got a lot of activity on my smartphone because it was on PBS, it was on CNN, MSNBC. I'm not usually on national television, so a lot of people contacted me.
You deserve to be anyway.
It was an amazing experience, a great opportunity.
Yes, that's what I was wondering about. What was it like to be there?
Well, I was a delegate to the 2012 convention in Charlotte, North Carolina. So in 12, I was on the petition as a delegate. This year, I was elected at the state Democratic Convention, New York State Democratic Convention, as an at-large delegate, so representing the whole state. It was really quite an honor. But also to be there when, who I hope will be the first woman president was nominated, and to hear the First
Are you listening, God?
Yes, please. To hear the First Lady's speech, which was just remarkable. I was 5 rows from the front, because New York is Secretary Clinton's state, so the New York delegation was right there. In Charlotte, we were, delegated to the boondocks. We were way up in the nosebleed seats, but down in Philadelphia, we were super close. It was remarkable.
So an awful lot of people there, weren't there?
There were. It was really just so professionally managed, and the entire experience was very different from the Charlotte experience, because Charlotte was, the president's re-election. There wasn't any kind of contest, in Philadelphia. Of course, the Bernie Sanders delegates needed to be heard and, needed to have an effect on what happened at the convention and where we went from the convention. So it was just a lot more energy. And for me to see, a woman get that nomination was just, I can't really put it into words. It was the experience of a lifetime.
I can imagine. I have 2 pictures of her on my Scotch tape to my front door. The First Lady when she got the nomination, and then the speech was just incredible.
Yeah, I have to say another moment that I don't think anybody else focused on the way I have is when the women of the United States Senate took the stage. And honestly, I get emotional just thinking about it. What just knowing across the United States, what each of these women has done in her professional career to get to the United States Senate, and knowing like a little bit about each of them, and knowing what incredible leaders they are, is really, that was a very moving moment for me. I tweeted that one.
I can't pass this up without mentioning the fact that when I went to college, American University in Washington, D.C., no less, I went there because I had been president of my high school, and I wanted to go to law school and be in politics. But a woman couldn't get into law school in those days.
Right.
And that was really such a blow, that you thought, my God, there was one woman senator, Margaret Chase Smith from Maine, and that was it.
Yeah.
So, in those days, women just were home in the home, making the cookies, taking care of the children, and they didn't venture out to have individual lives of their own.
Yeah.
Women were just beginning to enter the workforce. I mean, they did in World War II, but after World War II, they all went back to the kitchen, except a few of them, like my mother, who continued working,
Right.
But we have made a great deal of progress in the striving to be equal citizens.
Yeah, yes, but not enough, I have to say.
No.
When I went to law school, I went to the University of Virginia Law School, and actually when I started at the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, I worked for Linda Fairstein, who ran the sex crimes prosecution unit. I was a sex crimes prosecutor, and Linda had gone to University of Virginia, and when she went, she was in the first class that graduated women, and that was in the 1970s.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Wow. Well, that makes
yeah.
me not even feel so bad. I'm glad to hear that because...
But I mean, we still have so far to go. I was at a hearing yesterday on water quality in New York State that was held by the joint committees of the New York State Legislature, so the Senate and Assembly committees on health and environment. They had two hearings on water quality. One was in Albany, and one, of course, thank goodness, they're paying attention, was on Long Island, and it was in Hauppauge yesterday. So I was on the first panel with Supervisor Ed Romaine from Brookhaven, County Executive Steve Ballone, and my counterpart on the North Fork, Al Krupski. So that was three men who are, terrific public servants. I don't mean to say otherwise, but there's three men and myself. And then I think there must have been at least a dozen assemblymen and senators. One was a woman. So in this whole group, well over 24 people, I would say maybe about 20 of us, between the state legislators and ourselves in local government. Two of us were women. It felt very odd, I have to say.
Wow.
Yeah, so we have a long
amazing.
way to go. And those women in the Senate, they're still a small
Yes.
minority. In the New York State Legislature, I believe the number is still 17%.
Isn't
Yeah,
that amazing?
it's crazy.
So you went from the Southampton Town Board, ran for this position, and now have a totally new area, which includes District 1. Am I mistaken?
It's actually the second legislative district in Suffolk County. It's similar to the first district in the United States Congress, but it's the South Fork. The first district is Al Krupski's district, which is the North Fork.
Right,
Yeah.
yes.
But so my district runs from East Mauritius to Montauk and includes Shelter Island.
Wow.
It's huge. Yeah, it's very big.
I hope you got a good car.
Well, yeah, actually I don't. My air conditioning just broke on the way over here. My own little Ford is showing some strain, but I do have a county car, which I use when I'm on county business.
So what is the difference in your life now? Tell us some of the things that you are working on, although not that I don't know, but tell everybody.
Well, the biggest difference is that it's such a big district. Well, I wouldn't say that's the biggest. It's one of the biggest differences. But interestingly, with in terms of the subject matter, there's a lot of similarity, because we are a really unique place, the east end of Long Island. And the South Fork, whether it be Shelter Island or Montauk or West Hampton, we have a lot of the same issues, maintaining our agriculture. Clean water issues are number one. We have public transportation concerns. We have, we have problems with keeping our young people here. All of these things are...
sea level rise.
Sea level, all the water issues, without a doubt. So all of these things are pretty similar across our district, and they're really different from some of Western Suffolk, which has a much more dense population, much less... their natural resources are less well preserved. They're less part of their economy. They just don't have the same sensibilities as we do, the same priorities as we do. But Southampton, East Hampton, Shelter Island, there really are so many similarities that are different from my counterparts up west, that it's been pretty consistent for me in terms of like my talking points. The only thing that I've extended beyond, and when I say talking points, I mean the issues that I work on. What I've extended beyond is in the public health realm, which we didn't, well actually, and also culture. Arts and culture is something that I didn't really get to deal much with at the town level, but of course, at the county level, we have limited support for cultural organizations, but it's gotten me more connected to cultural organizations, which, as you know personally, is a big deal on the East End because we have an amazing, remarkable, amount of talent and really high-level thinking and art out here. So that's exciting.
And you were mentioning the public health, and I know that you have been quite involved with the plague of
Tick-borne illnesses.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. So for the first time, actually, in history, I guess, Suffolk County now has in its capital program funding for the tick-borne disease part of the health department's lab. So there's a tick-borne illness. There's actually an arthropod-borne illness lab, which is bugs, right? And it's mostly focused on mosquitoes historically. And we really haven't had the kind of attention to our problems, again, the East End, which is really not about mosquitoes, it's about ticks. And we have a real public health crisis. There are very few people who aren't affected directly by it. And so I'm excited about that. We're funding equipment for the lab. We are about rolling out a program to do research, collect the ticks, and then do research. Right now, it's 10 locations throughout the county where they'll be collecting the ticks. They roll out these white pieces of cloth, and then they roll them back up, and they bring them to the lab, and they test them. They do DNA testing. They do all sorts of tests so that we'll start to be able to develop.
DNA on a tick, wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
You must not follow me on Snapchat because I had the tick DNA up on my Snapchat a month or so ago. But anyway, so the plan is to figure out which specific species are at what locations, at what stage of their lives, on what hosts, importantly, so we can start to really fashion the right solutions, whether it's culling the deer or the four-posters or simple mowing and making rock beds or whatever it is that would be most effective in the specific area. Because we have more species than most people. They are more active at the different stages of their lives. They're carrying more diseases.
Oh, they are indeed.
So we really need to, I'm really hopeful, Phyllis, that in 6 years or so, people will look at us in Connecticut or Colorado and they'll say, Suffolk County really got their tick population under control. That's my goal for this, because we have some really great people. We have an entomologist on staff at the lab. Jay Schneiderman, my predecessor, got that going. We just passed reformation of the committee that we have a tick advisory committee that's going to be advising this new program, which we're calling the Tick Management and Research Program. Tick Research and Management Program. Anyway, so this group is going to be advising the lab, and we'll begin to start to get over some of the challenges to the different solutions. So we won't have to say, we're going to use this one solution, island-wide, or we'll make sure that we're being really sensible about limiting what we do in what places, because everything has a downside. So we want to just make sure that it's applied specifically to where it belongs, and you need research for that. So I'm really excited about that. It's the first time, it's a new capital program, and it's the first time. So looking forward to rolling that out.
Every time I pass certain areas, I live in Camp Blue Bay, and every time I pass there and I see the turkeys eating, I say, manja, manja, because I know they're working on the ticks.
Yep.
And also, but people also have to learn that they have to take care of themselves as well.
Absolutely.
I have a set of clothes that are sprayed with permethrin. That's what I put on when I'm going to go out and work on my grounds.
Good for you.
And when I come in, I strip down, put those clothes right into the dryer.
In the dryer. Good for you.
Because that's the one thing they can't take.
That's right.
Which is heat. And
Yep.
they will be exterminated at that point.
Yep.
And then, of course, you have to do the body check and make sure that you really didn't pick up anything. You also brush my ear like crazy when I come in. I mean, those are things that people have to do.
Yes.
There's a wonderful book written by Tommy Hilfinger's daughter. It was how tick diseases stole my youth.
Bite
How
me?
Lyme's disease, bite me. How Lyme disease stole my youth.
Yeah.
And what she went through. And
Yeah.
it's really a horror story.
And she's not alone. And it's not just Lyme's. You have babesiosis or lichiosis. Now we have the allergy to meat.
Which is something that our town clerk is suffering from, as a matter of fact.
That comes from the Lone Star larvae, which people think are chiggers, which it's not chiggers, it's the Lone Star larvae. But if you find that, all those little tiny black things that itch like crazy on your ankles, that's Lone Star larvae, and that's what will give you the alpha-gal, the beef allergy.
So what do you do about that?
Well, what you have to do is immediately remove them and then watch for the allergy. But the key is what you were saying. Before you go into the woods, you need to make sure you bring your socks over your pants.
Absolutely.
That you spray your shoes as well as your socks.
Got
And, when you come in, you make sure you do that tick check. And put it in the dryer. That's a brilliant idea, and it really does work.
Yeah, well, I've been to all those symposiums. Every time they have them, I go and I listen to what they.
And there's a great resource center at Southampton Hospital, which has a fabulous hotline, 726-TICK. So it's 631-726-TICK, and they can tell you anything. I actually called them when my niece came in from Massachusetts Park in Sag Harbor. With the Lone Star larvae on her ankles, poor thing, they itch like crazy. I got them too. They itch like crazy. But I called them and they gave me the advice, and they're getting more and more sophisticated because so many of us have been affected. So they know all the answers. People are calling them from all over the world.
Really?
Yeah, it's a great resource.
What's the number again?
631-726-TICK.
Because one of the difficulties with tick-borne diseases is that they are very difficult to diagnose.
Right.
There's really no specific tests. There are tests you can take, but they don't show up the result until you get the symptoms.
I went to a seminar or just a talk just the other day, actually, maybe a week or so ago, at Parish, the Southampton Hospital, the little parish hall they have there. It's a really nice little room where Ellen's Run starts. I don't know if you do Ellen's Run. Anyway, a woman whose specialty is neurological diseases spoke on just that issue. So basically, she was talking to doctors. I happened to be able to go and listen in. But basically, educating the medical population on how to spot these symptoms of the various diseases that come from tick-borne illnesses. Our medical community on the East End is getting more and more sophisticated, and they go to that diagnosis more and more. They order the tests that are going to find out whether that's what the issue is. But one of the big challenges is people who come here to visit, then they go back to the city or wherever where it's not as prominent or prevalent, and they don't, their doctors don't pick it up. Our doctors are starting to pick stuff up. Yes. It's hard to detect too, though. Lyme's has, it takes a while for the body to build the antibodies. So if you test too early, you're not going to pick it up. If you've had it before, then those antibodies are going to be there. I better be careful, because if I talk science and I'm not right, I don't want to get in trouble. I'm not a scientist, but I'm learning a lot, and our medical community is learning a lot.
Well, it's a very important thing that you are bringing to the attention and doing some work on for the people here, because it is something that does plague many, many people.
It's a public health crisis, without a doubt. Yeah.
And another public health crisis, as far as I'm concerned, is the water quality issue.
Absolutely.
I mean, it is positively frightening to hear how our water has been degraded. I will say not my bay, because this morning when I was in the bay, I had all these little fishies all around me, and I said to myself, I don't know, with maybe 1,000 little baby fish around me, this water can't be all bad. But
Well, and it's not all bad. And even when we have the brown tides and the red tides, we still have some of the most stunning water bodies in the world on the east end of Long Island. It's one of the reasons why we have to work so hard to keep them precious. But we do have this central problem, which is that we don't have sewers and we don't want sewers. And, most of the our wastewater is treated with these on-site systems, which just don't adequately pull all of the nutrients out of wastewater before it goes back into the surface water. So we have to upgrade our septics, and it's a huge thing. Suffolk County has 360,000 systems. IBM did a study. I know. IBM did a study that said it would cost $8 billion to upgrade all those systems. So we have a huge problem on our hands. But, I have to say, I was at the Friends of Georgia Pond Association's annual meeting not long ago, and you just see the level of commitment to our natural resources that exists in our community is very different from most places in the world. We get it, by and large. So I do believe that we will be leaders on the East End. The Community Preservation Fund is obviously a huge piece of it, because the 5 East End towns, this, but if you don't mind, I'd love to just
please tell people, please,
tell the
by
folks
all
at
means.
Home. So the 5 East End towns benefit from something that's called the Community Preservation Fund. It's a 2% transfer tax on the transfer of property over $250,000 and not first-time home buyer. So that fund is then used since 1998. The 5 East End towns, East Hampton, Southampton, Shelter Island, Riverhead, and Southold, have been able to use that money to purchase open space, historic resources, and farmland in order to preserve them, or to buy development rights off of them. So it's done great things for the East End. It was a brilliant piece of legislation when it was passed in 1998. I'm so grateful to everyone who worked on it. But now the state legislature passed an amendment to it that we're going to be considering on Election Day, November 8th. So very important. Turn your ballot over. You go in, vote for the candidates.
Key. This is something we just found out.
It's Proposition 1. And what it does is it would extend the CPF until 2050. But it would also allow the towns to use up to 20% of that fund, and it's considerable money, to use up to 20% for water quality initiatives. And in order to do that, the towns have been required to come up with water quality improvement plans. And they're on the websites. East Hampton has one, Southampton has one, Shelter Island has one. And I have to say, East Hampton's is really very good, and Southampton's as well. Shelter Island has less resources in terms of planning and stuff, so they have one. It's sketched out. But East Hampton and Southampton are really the engineers and the municipal attorneys and the planners and the scientists who have contributed to that really made it a great, great document. Identifies what watersheds exist in East Hampton, how they travel to how groundwater gets to surface water, identifies like properties that would be priorities for upgrading septic, very, very intelligently, thoroughly thought out plan, so that if this referendum passes, and I really hope it does, it's in our best interest without a doubt, but if it passes in November, then the towns are going to be able to use it, and they're going to be way ahead of the game compared to the rest of Suffolk County in terms of rolling out rebate programs, incentive programs, upgrading, pilot programs perhaps, just ways to really get folks to buy in and upgrade their systems.
Yes, I have been waiting for this one to pass for a long time.
Yeah.
I've been waiting also for Suffolk County to come up with that particular system that will mitigate the nitrogen.
Yes.
And that's still sort of in the works.
It's very soon. We have, the health department has systems at 19 pilot sites throughout Suffolk County right now. They don't want to rush into approving systems because, these are new technologies and they've been known to it's in the past you've had situations where systems are approved and then for one reason or another don't live up to their promises, and we don't want to be in that situation. So Suffolk County Health Department has been waiting to make sure that they have 6 months of steady data that show that the system is effective before they give it their imprimatur. So we're expecting the pilots to result in some approved systems pretty soon. And the legislature just passed a revision of the sanitary code that would allow us to permit these things, so that allow the Department of Health to permit them and and this is really important, to oversee the ongoing maintenance and operation to make sure that these things are working, that the systems are working. So it's moving. I know it feels like a snail's pace, but it is moving, and it should be fairly soon. And the CPF is going to have a huge impact.
One thing I have to mention, folks, is that this is the third time we have had an appointment to have this conversation.
I know, I'm so
because
bad,
this woman who has changed her sort of life has really been so involved and working on so many things that
I'm really hard to reach. I'm sorry, Phyllis.
No, listen, it's okay. As long as you're doing good work, I'm willing to wait. We can always arrange another time. What I'm wondering about is, how do you have a life for that son and husband?
Well, I have to say one thing is different about the county job is that I have great staff. So they are doing an awful lot. We got a lot more. But my husband and my son are faring very well, I'm happy to say. But I would like to see them a little more. But it's okay. They're doing great. My son is 14 years old. He's taller than me now. My husband is happy. I'm lucky because I have a husband who's really involved with Jay, our son, and he's just willing to do the stuff around the house that's helpful to us, and just a great guy. I'm very fortunate in that regard.
Well, you are, my dear, and we are all fortunate to have you working for us. And keep up the good work, because we need you.
Thank you.
Well, it means we really do.
It's all good. Thank you, Phyllis.
Thank you.